What are you? Why are you so? What are you doing? This is a back market area in Singapore where the sellers offer prohibited medicines. This is an illegal trading, guys, just like this at broad daylight. Hey, what are you doing? I was shooting an illegal trading, and a man just attacked me. Everyone's eyes blazed with fury, and they started yelling, "We are gonna stab you! We are gonna kill you!" I tried to leave, but those guys followed me for several blocks. I really couldn't believe that something like that is possible in Singapore at broad daylight. So we're in the most progressive country in the world. Damn, it's really an ideal one, guys. There's no corruption, zero crime level, no one smokes in the street, no one throws cigarette butts. Well, it's nearly heaven on earth. Singapore is just an incredibly green city. I mean, wherever you look, there is always trees, grass, and lawns everywhere. But is this really true? Today, we're going to show you the underside of Singapore. You'll see the slum buildings costing hundreds of $1,000s. Yeah, this is a sink. The funny thing is, if they sell this place, it would cost hundreds of $1,000s. Singapore is called the City of Millionaires. This is also your property, right?
Yep, we can walk in there. A barbecue zone, and there will be a kids area with a small pool.
This is where you sleep.
Yeah, sleep here. Because I stay.
And how is it to live in Singapore for the slaves of the 21st century?
I'm like running like a machine, 24 hours. They are shouting, screaming at me. Not enough food.
What is secret bandit groups? So-called triads.
And I used to take the weapon, then I go there and fight. Fight around two, three times already. Then they accept me become a gang members.
There's two types of gangster in Singapore. Like for us, we don't go to the temple to pray. We don't do like cut blood. We drink the blood or everything. We don't do that. Our type is just like a normal type. Anything we just go fight or everything. We don't talk to so much.
We'll learn their origins and what they look like now. We met former and current fighters.
You want to start a business in their territory, you have to pay them protection money. Protect them from what? From their own people disturbing your business.
So guys, we're in Singapore, the wealthiest Asian country, where there is still almost slavery. This is the most open economic in the world, which is actually controlled by just a bunch of families. This is the country with the least corruption level in the world, where still secret gangster groups exist, so-called triads. Today, we will chat with their men. I am Stas Natanzan, and this is the Singapore you have never ever seen before.
Singapore gang is a lot different gang is a lot. They will call logo, different logo a lot. Okay, this part, this side, for example, this Gangster is for my gang side, my place. Then other place, Sengkang is other side people already.
We are now at the northern Singapore outskirts, next to the Malaysian border. The main business of local gangs is traditionally cigarette and alcohol smuggling. Well, and racket, of course.
Okay, we have a business, we just all the coffee shop, then some street they sell something there, video, we become your protection. Anything you can call us, but 1 month you must pay us money. Protection money.
How much was it? How much did they pay?
Some of them, the business law, they will give you 500. Some of them will give 1,000. Every month you need to take the money. We become a protection. Become the protection them. We want the protection money. We never give this protection money, then you also cannot sell here already. Or we will hammer you, we will let you ask you to go. Then you will give me. So there's a certain period I never work. Every day I stay at a coffee shop, I drink, then drink, fight. Then I go in again, in the prison, in, out, then I go in again.
Lin spent most of his life being a fighter of a Singapore triad. This is how they call gangs. They also say secret groups.
24 is means our logo. our logo.
So, this is how your group was called. The names of Singapore triads are often consist of numbers. For instance, one of the most infamous gangs is Salakau 369. Can you tell me about your tattoos? Do they mean something?
Because last time this my tattoo, I follow my gang. I follow my gang do one. This all got a meaning one. You any research, you must do this style tattoo. Not like, now they say body art. Body art is, our time is not body art. That's now we will follow our group. Okay, this company wear this one uniform, you must wear that kind of uniform.
Lin quitted Triads almost 10 years ago. Now he works as a waiter in a restaurant, where all the employees are former members of various Singapore secret groups. People joined these at an early age. Lin did it when he was 10. And to full membership, you must get in fights with rivals. Was there some initiation ritual? Something you had to do in order to become a full-fledged Triad member.
Or something I do because they ask me go and fight first. Then I go in straight away, I go in the coffee shop there. I still feel a youngster there. Then I one or two person, then they see you're daring to fight. Then I used to take the weapon, then I go there and fight. Fight around two, three times maybe. Then they accept me become a gang members.
Singapore doesn't have an ancient history. This is why people here can make big symbols of insignificant things. For example, Merlion. This sculpture was set in 1975. It's a lion with a mermaid tail. You may say, it's cheap modern stuff, but today it is one of the main symbols of Singapore. Actually, there is just 4 sculptures like this in the whole country. Or, let's take another, also modern symbol, the Marina Bay Sands Hotel. One might say, it's just a hotel. Okay, an expensive hotel with a pool on the roof. Have you ever seen a hotel, I mean it, just a hotel, that became a symbol for a country?
My name is Alvin Chong. I'm an ex-offender.
Alvin used to be a fighter of one of the biggest Singapore triads,
Geylang.
Geylang.
Secret Society. Okay, during that time they got 19,000 members. Okay, this is the territory of their...
Geylang was one of the first Singapore secret groups. It dates back to 19th century, when the first fighters of the gang moved to Singapore from Hong Kong. That is why the gang members spoke in Cantonese. So this is where the fist office of the Singaporean gangs was located.
This is like a community center for them. It's like a club. But during that time, they speak only their own language. So they have to start a club like that, okay, or a clan. They call a clan to help their own people. So this is how all these clans started. They got Teochew clans, they got Cantonese, they got Hokkien, many.
Originally, Singapore triads acted as communities for mutual aid of Chinese migrant laborers. All newcomers automatically joined one or another secret group, depending on the language or dialect they spoke.
So all this day, you don't have to worry, and then you just follow my boss. So for them, they thought it's a sense of safety, sense of belonging, brotherhood, and I can ease my heart, I have a boss, and then I have a place to stay, I have a job. But initially, they don't know they are joining a gang.
The main job of the 19th century gangs was not robbing and killing. They mostly unloaded ships at the docks.
You see, when all these traders, merchants, they come in, sometimes they have a few boat. They got a lot of stocks. So these people on the deck there, they will go and, like salesmen, hey, I can do loading, unloading for you, settle, 2 days time. How many people you have? I got so many people, manpower, so this is why they want more and more people. Yeah. You can see all this ceremony, this is the early stage. We call Ma Jie.
Métier?
Yeah, they also call them Samsui women. They comb their hair, they put on this, they don't want to get married anymore. Okay, these are the women who contribute a lot in the early times of Singapore.
Why did they decide not to have a husband?
Because they don't want to be bondage. They want to work and then save enough money. They send back to their own country. They send back to China.
So they decided not to have a husband, not to have kids, so that they could work all the time?
Yes. And they take care of their family.
Samsui women appeared in Singapore in the late 30s of the 20th century. During that time, the government, in order to protect the labor market during the Great Depression, limited the inflow of male workers. Then it was Chinese women who came to work in Singapore. They wore a red headdress so that they were visible on construction sites. It was like a modern orange helmet, which Samsui women couldn't afford. In fact, those women sacrificed their lives to support their families that they could never meet again. Now we are in the center of Singapore, in Chinatown. Nowadays, this is one of the most expensive districts of this incredibly expensive city. The apartments here cost around $2 million. Fancy cafes, expensive cars. But when Elvin was a young guy, there was a real haunt of vice here, the home of illegal casinos and rookeries.
Singapore first casino was not located either in Sentosa or MBS. It's here. Okay, they got a very famous gambling house during that time.
Sentosa Island and the casino of Marina Bay Sands Hotel are legal gambling areas in Singapore. They were legalized after 2008. Admission is free for foreign guests, but the citizens of Singapore pay around $100, so they don't gamble.
What is it so special? In olden days, it has a special name. Hokkien people call this street Giao Keng Khao. Translated to English, the mouth of the gambling den.
What do you think? Is there still illegal gambling houses in Singapore now?
Of course it exists, because it is a very good money. Every 100 you bet, if you win, you will contribute $2 to the tips. But if you lose $100. So from morning until you bet until night, end of the day, most of your money will go to my tipping box. This is how we make money.
Illegal casinos are still the main business of triads, but we have to realize they are no ordinary gangs. The triads trace their roots back to the history of a feud between the supporters of the fallen Ming dynasty and the new Qin dynasty in China, which took place in the 17th century.
During the Qing dynasty takeover, there was a group of all these royalties, royal family, they want to bring back. So there was the time they started the underground movement. Okay, like they want to overthrow the Qing dynasty.
Since then, the Chinese mafia, this is another name for triads, has been keeping their complicated initiation rituals and codes.
Normally, the boss, the head man will tell them, hey, take your passport, let's go. Without knowing anything. You don't even know you're going, just say, follow the passport, follow me. So most of the time, they will end up in either Malaysia or Indonesia. And then once they pass the border, someone will come and fetch, and they will blindfold you. So you'll be blindfold throughout the journey. And then normally they will end up in a plantation. That was before computer period. Yeah. So they go in, they have this.
Elvin shows me the things they give you for the initiation.
And then they have to vow. Okay, they got rules and regulations they have to follow. And also, those who undergo this ritual, they will be appointed position in the secret society. And it's all known over everywhere in the world. Their name will be written down into a book. And your position, be it you are an advisor, you are a fighter, or you are what, okay, you'll be written down. And then this one will be sent out to other countries like Taiwan, like Hong Kong, like Vietnam, all this. Cambodia.
So, all the triads in Asia know who you are, right?
Yes.
I'm not sure I understand.
Especially for Hongmen, okay?
Yep. Tattoo representing a position in a gang.
It is like, yeah, this is the one.
Does this tattoo mean something?
Yeah.
It means you are in the gang, right?
Yeah, it's a fighter.
This is a fighter tattoo. So, whether you are a fighter or someone else, you have different dragons?
This dragon is different. Yeah, this dragon is, you see those Chinese, when they go to war, they have this dragon on the flag.
Yeah.
So this is that dragon.
Yeah.
So that means we are, anytime we stand by for war. During that time I was studying in school, I was still studying, I got my tattoo. So my discipline master asked me, what are you going to do with this? I say, I put acid. Wow, cannot. There got any other, I say, I go and find a way. Okay, you can go and settle. Then I go and put a bigger one. I put a bigger one to cover the smaller one. This is my day.
There's two types of gangster in Singapore. Like for us, we don't go to the temple to pray. We don't do like cut blood. We drink the blood or everything. We don't do that. Our type is just like a normal type. Anything, we just go fight or everything. We don't talk so much.
He asked us to call him Patrick and hide his face because he is still a powerful figure in the gangster world of Singapore. However, he claims that he's given up crime business. He sets up a meeting at one of the parking lots of one of the malls, which, let's put it this way, his fighters used to protect.
Since I think I'm 13 or 14 or something like this.
When you were 14,
Yeah.
do you remember how you joined them?
Entered. Because when I was young, we just like, we wanted a group of people to play together, you know.
These are old tattoos, right? This is not just an art.
Yeah, this is like, I think I make inside the prison.
Patrick told us that he was willing to talk only about the old days and not about now.
I'm sorry, touched, because I cannot say a lot of things about the gangster. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot in Singapore, a lot of people know my lifestyle, a lot of when I was in the gang and how my life changed.
Patrick worked his way from an ordinary fighter to the leader of a big Singaporean groups.
We can go and stock like every shop, we go and collect money. Yeah, saying that we are home ground, belong to here. Yeah, then we will open a gathering then like last time. About my last sentence, we have some problem at the shopping mall. No, I bring my knife along. Then I go and poke somebody. You need 3 steps or 4 steps, I don't know anything about that. And he went to ICU, the doctor said that, I don't know how the lung come out, I also don't know about that. I don't intend about like going poke under the lung, I don't intend. But I was angry, you know, I was angry because he saw me walk there, he just spit at me in front of me. I feel very angry, then I tried to chase him and he fall down, then I poked him.
It's dangerous place. I will become a money lender. I will do my own money lender. Then I call the uncle. I say, uncle, you need to pay me the money. Cost few thousand already, around 10,000. Then you must pay me this money. He said, oh, we don't pay you. What you want to do? I say, uncle, because you owe us, you pay us. You pay us. This is not my business. We also must get member business. Okay. I hope you respect. You must pay us this money. Because you need money, you come and see us. Then we pay you that time. We want to ask you that time, pay back, you never. Then after that, he will talk all the nonsense. Then scold all the bad words in front of me. Then I said, now you want to pay, don't want to pay. He said, you don't want to pay, how? I will take the samurai, you know the Japan samurai? Yeah. I will chop off his hand.
You cut his hand?
Yes. Chop. I will chop off his hand. I will chop off his hand, then I will take his hand, I will throw one side. I like to use the samurai because they want very sharp. Because I told this guy, something is not happen, make sure you pay us. If something happen already, we don't want your money already. Make sure. Then he say, don't pay, what you want to do? Then he thought that very proud. Then straight away take the samurai and chop off his hand.
Such public clashes were quite common in Singapore in the early aughts. Nowadays, they have almost vanished. The whole city is now rigged with cameras, so it is almost impossible to break the law on the street. Almost. Hey guys, we're in Geylang, the darkest ground of Singapore. Once, it used to be controlled by Triads. These are some secret groups like Italian Mafia. Geylang is still the most criminal area of the city. They sell all prohibited goods here. There are such kinds of business here that I can't even tell you about. Otherwise, my channel will be banned. The gangs still control this land, though not as much as they used to. One of the business here is pharmaceutical trade. How does it come here? Do you have these medicines in a drugstore, in a legal pharmacy?
And do you have the same drugs in drugstore and official upstairs?
I think this one you can get USA.
Right here, right now, in broad daylight, you can see an illegal pharmaceutical trade. All these are ordinary medicines, but they are so expensive in legal drugstores that sellers deliver them here illegally and sell them here. The most popular item is Viagra. At first, sellers were not sure how to deal with me. Some guy with a camera is shooting their unlawful business. But to attack me means to draw extra attention. Some guys just ask me not to shoot. Others demand money. No, I want it for free. I just want to shoot. Viagra? And this. Viagra too, yes? Most of this stuff is Viagra. And this is a painkiller. How much is it? How much?
$100.
100? And how much would it be in a pharmacy? $1,000? Is this the official price?
Yes.
What's up, man? What are you? What are you doing?
Money.
Shoot, did you see how nervous they are? They come from behind. Look, this one is staring. Okay, this is an illegal trading. Guys, just like this in a broad daylight, you can see they are upset. This guy is staring at me. Singapore is actually the city of smuggle, thanks to its harbor. In fact, the island state acts as a gate between Asia and the rest of the world. It has a unique geographic position at the main sea route in the world. This is exactly why the British founded here at the beginning of 19th century, a port which very soon became the biggest one in Asia, and then in the whole world, and maintained that status for 2 centuries. Just recently, it has given the first place to Shanghai. Beside legal goods, tons of contraband are smuggled through this place every day. First of all, it is cigarettes and alcohol. We can regularly read about this in press. Also, smuggled goods include tusks and other ingredients of Chinese medicine. In summer 2022, the biggest consignment of tusks was intercepted in the Singapore harbor. There were almost 6 tons there. The parcel went from South Africa to China, and they have captions like this every year. Also, Singapore is a hub for circumvention of sanctions. For example, in the coastal waters, here they decant Venezuela oil to deliver it around the whole Asia. Naturally, this island was, and it is now, a huge drug hub, although the government is struggling against it. Guys, we are now entering into a Singaporean ghetto, a place in this golden city where poor Singaporeans and immigrants live. Look, the guy with a syringe in his hand. He's not even hiding.
What's this? YouTube?
Yeah, that's right.
What's your channel?
My channel is in Russian. Is this like a drug point here?
Yeah, this is like real life history.
Yeah.
You have drugs there.
No, recording, right? Hey!
Let's get out of here quick. Let's go. Damn, you saw it. This is a drug point. This is the most vicious ghetto in Singapore. It's really intense. There are syringes literally everywhere. Something like burnt spoons. I can't show you everything because of the YouTube's restrictions. But god damn it, this is just a real sewer. And this sewer is in the middle of the richest city. It's a real crap. You know how they show the streets of Philadelphia, which is now a drug capital of the USA? Well, this is all the same here. See that man on a chair? In the city of a million cameras, as they call Singapore. criminals have learned how to hide from seemingly flawless video surveillance. You see, one camera is turned over there, and the other one is onto the alley. This is why the guy can just sit here, and no one will see him. And in this places, cameras don't see. For cameras, people do all what they always do in blind spots. Check it out, friends. Those guys are hanging exactly in the corner, because there is a camera over there, and it turned aside. But the corner is always out of the zone. In Singapore, those who do illegal things always stand in the corners. A corner is a blind spot. The trays with smuggled medicines are also set in the way cameras don't see them. Probably, I'm the first guy to shoot them like this. Hey, what are you doing? Did you see it? Okay, let's get out of here. People started attacking us already. But in fact, all this is happening in front of many people, in broad daylight. Actually, it is an open secret for every Singaporean, including the police guys. Speaking of severe Singaporean laws that punish you for any mistake, what do you think? Why these people are allowed to trade? Yeah, sure, this is just medicines. Illegal selling of smuggled medicines in order to drive down a price. Do you believe these sellers have a protection in the police? Is there a corruption here in Singapore or not? Why do these guys keep working in the streets? Come on, this is the most uncorrupt country in the world. It is clean and unbribable, am I right? What do you think, guys? Please write your opinion in the comments. How come these people work in broad daylight? By the way, I asked this question to all my Singaporean friends, and they are all sure that those sellers don't pay bribes and the police didn't fight smuggling and drug trafficking just because they either don't know or they are too busy with other stuff. It occurs to no one in Singapore that the police is just in play. Hotel 81 is a very interesting Singapore phenomenon. This is a love hotel. I mean, you can book the room for a whole night as well. But usually lovebirds pay here for an hour. But there's other thing. The most interesting fact is the owner of this hotel. Chu Kong Nigan in the early 90s realized that people have nowhere to go for having sex. The thing is, Singaporean hotels were very expensive, and many people just couldn't afford them. That is why the guy started to lease beds for sex. Now Chu Kong Nigan is one of the wealthiest people in Singapore. According to the Forbes, his fortune is estimated at $2 billion. And Hotel 81 is a huge chain, covering the whole city. Now Chu Kong Nigan owns other hotels as well, even in other countries, I believe. Anyways, I don't know whether we can call him the wealthiest souteneur of the planet or not. Of course, the wild prices for real estate impact the hotel as well. It's a big luck today to find a room in Singapore for less than $100 for a night. I'll be talking quietly, because there might be people sleeping here. Capsule hotels are incredibly popular in Singapore because of a very expensive life. Well, in fact, they are hostels, dorms. But a glossy ones. Hey look, guys, this is my place, 51. Let's see what's inside. Yep, the light is here. Let it be the light. A toothbrush, a blanket. Let's look inside here. Well, first is the size. Let me lay down. Well, it's okay. Look. I'm in the middle. There is plenty of space here and here. There's plenty of space down there. You may even put your purse or whatever. It's quite comfortable. Good mattress is good. What's this? One more lightning. You can read in the night. All is good. There is, look guys. There is a safe here. However, a very tiny one. You can hardly squeeze anything here, but it will do for a wallet. 2 outlets, 4 USB slots, which is very cool. You can charge anything you want, all devices. 1 more shelf. A very cozy little shade here. You closed it, and you may rest. Here we go. Chill out. Sleep. Yeah. A dog kennel. Let's go look what is there outside. There is another person looking for his place. I'm recording.
Привет! That was Jella. Очень приятно.
Where are you from?
Indonesia. Indonesia.
Where did you study Russian?
Oh, actually, my girlfriend is Russian last time. Yeah. But I studied in France. Last time I met my girlfriend in France. She's Russian. Yeah, so I learned a little bit. Yeah. Очень приятно. Oh, как вас зовут?
Stas.
Stas.
Right, it is.
William. Очень приятно. The first day?
I've just arrived. My new Indonesian friend, William. Or, I don't know, how should you call a person who you share a room with? How else? A roommate? No, not a bedmate. Let's not go that far. Look what we have here. What's here? This is a compartment for suitcases. Actually, it's quite wide. A suitcase will fit. Look guys, there are such rooms. Let me switch in the light. Well, where is it here? Look, this is a chic room. There is a lighting with a dimmer. And why didn't they give me such a room? I think it is even more expensive. Probably, this is an elite capsule. Well, it's quite comfortable here, apart from the fact that this cubicle is really tiny. Really tiny. And the funny fact is, for this tiny place, I paid $100. Well, okay, 100 Singaporean dollars, which is about 80 American ones. And they don't have anything cheaper. Geylang is a very notable Singapore district. Please don't confuse it with a gay land. This place has nothing to do with gays. Initially, there lived a tribe, Orang Laut. They are also called Sea Gypsies, who traveled along all the South China Sea and reached even North Vietnam. So the first citizens of Singapore were Gypsies. Then there came the Chinese, who absorbed the cultures of Sea Gypsies, Malays, Indonesians, and then Europeans and formed a new ethnos, Peranakas. This is the Ketong district. I think it is the place of the first Chinese settlement on the territory of modern Singapore. Here lived so-called Peranakans, who consider themselves a certain ethnos, although they are the Chinese who started immigrating many centuries ago. This resettlement went on till the 21st century. Peranakans, actually the Chinese, immigrated to Asia, mingled, and absorbed the culture from Malays and Indonesians, and later from European colonists. As a result, they formed their own culture and a special ethnos they eagerly protect now. Look over there. This is what the Peranakanian homes look like. A quite different architecture. It's not like the rest of Singapore. In Indonesia, they even have a special term for Peranakans, because they refuse to be the Chinese. So there is a special word in Indonesia for them, which translates like non-Chinese Chinese. As you can see, Peranakans have bright houses with carved platbans, like in our Russian villages. This culture also features bright dresses and a very unique cuisine with bright tastes. They tell legends about astronomical process for real estate in Singapore. In 2022, the Arabian business decided to find out what you can buy for $1 million in different countries. In Dubai, it would be a posh apartment in a high-rise. In Italian Toscana, a villa with a vineyard. In New York, it would be a fashionable condo at Manhattan. It would be a 2-storied mansion, maybe in the Greater London. In Singapore, You could afford this bare 2-room apartment, even without furniture. Konstantin and Ilona moved to Singapore less than a year ago.
We have a condo. It's about 400 square feet, as far as I remember. All furniture, it was here originally, except the desk and the chair. We bought them. So they sell it like this, with all the appliances and kitchen. We rent it, of course.
Please tell the price. They say it's really expensive in Singapore.
3.6 thousand.
3.6 thousand for 400 square feet?
Yep.
$2 is a security deposit. You pay it, and they will give it back later. But if you take a condo for 2 years, well, it depends on a landlord and what he offers. In our case, it was 2 years minimum. And we were very lucky to rent for this price.
Actually, we came here and there was a friend of my mother. She's a business lady. She would have helped us with the rent, but unfortunately our budget just didn't.
You mean even 3.6 is a low price?
We were said starting from 5,000. Here, if you didn't ask to show you a condo, that's it. You lost it.
So apartments are bought very fast.
Yeah.
The market is overheated now in Singapore. Good apartments go for just a day.
We gave a huge batch like this because this is a long story. This was the money for the landlord, and she herself paid to the agent.
Guys live in a so-called condo, the only home foreigners may rent in Singapore. Condo always features a gym, a pool, and public spaces. Is this also your property?
Yep, we can walk in there. A barbecue zone, and there will be a kids area with a small pool.
And also, when you pass the security desk, you might see a big hall there. You can rent it and have a party there, just not to squeeze in your tiny flat.
Behind me, there is estate land. Probably they're going to build here some expensive condominiums for foreign visitors who bring Singapore lots of money. And over there, to the left, in contrast to the state land, there is a well-known, if not infamous, Block 26 at Sing Min Road. This is where the poorest citizens of Singapore live, but they are exactly the Singaporean.
I will learn about real-life locals from Pasha, who has his own blog about non-tourist Singapore.
$500 for a throne wrapping. This is a minimal fine.
And he showed a wrapping.
$500 for this nonsense. So no one litters here.
Of course you've heard that no one litters in Singapore, thanks to the fines. No one crosses the road on red light. So much for rules in Singapore.
So much for the observance of rules in Singapore.
They don't park their cars on a yellow marking. And absolutely no one smokes in the street. It is strictly prohibited.
As a person from the digital industry, I would say that after arriving in Singapore, the picture started refining gradually. First, I saw clean, smooth textures, buildings, homes, high-rises. And now I can see those small details swapped in, and now I see the real Singapore. The experience is quite different from the picture you used to get from YouTube, TV, or news.
There are lots of prejudices and stereotypes about Singapore. One of them is you're going to be fined for any cigarette butt, any wrapping you threw into the street. Well, partially, this is true. The official fine for cigarette butts is 300 Singaporean dollars. But speaking about cleanliness, look, we are in the very center of the city. This is Marina Square. Maybe you've heard of it. It is the most elite center in Singapore. It's very posh. Look at the bushes in this elite area. There are some bags, some papers, wrappings. Everything everywhere is covered with cigarettes. I mean, you could pick an annual Singaporean budget just from this place. And now look, so much for the cleanliness. I mean, yes, comparing to other Asian places, for example Bangkok or Ho Chi Minh, it's very clean here. But in general, it's just an ordinary, just a nice place. Yeah, it is clean. but just to some extent, not overly clean.
Now we won't show off the camera. We'll keep it quiet and check a local hawker and look at their bathroom. What it looks like at all and how clean Singaporean toilet is. For men is here. Here. Unflushed toilet, by the way, in Singapore.
Look guys, I won't show you this. There is terrible. Trust me.
The fine for an unflushed toilet in Singapore is $500. Who do you think controls it? No one. I'm going to flush it.
The idea of Singapore as a super clean country with 1 million fines for even the smallest violations appeared after an article, Disneyland with the Death Penalty, by William Gibson, published in the Wired magazine back in 1993. There, Singapore was described as such a purity concentration camp, where a piece of paper thrown on the floor causes everybody's panic. The article was, by the way, banned in Singapore, and the author became persona non grata here. But the conclusions were drawn, and it seems as if the city was deliberately polluted just a bit.
Let's take this very article about Singapore by Gibson. They discuss it at a local state institute of urban studies. This article had a really great impact on Singapore. Personally, I have the opportunity and time to compare the old Singapore from photos to the modern one. I have a feeling that they started doing real research. As if they decided, really, let's add a little bit of garbage in the street. Let's add the poor, beggars. Let's add cracks on the pavement. But damn it, we don't want anyone to fall down, so let's mark them with a striped ribbon. Buskers, beggars, of course. Let them be like a subculture. But let's license everyone so that everything was for real.
Well guys, if you too want to load a refined picture of Singapore, check Pasha's YouTube channel. I'll drop the link in the description. Come and watch it. Pasha and I are going to see how ordinary Singaporeans live. Actually, Singaporeans are very pragmatic people. Here is one good example, illustrating it. The funeral. Traditionally, along with the deceased, they burn his money here and his belongings, so that a person has something to live on in the other world.
Here to the right is a special platform for sacrifices, for offerings to spirits. A special service delivers it to your order. If your relative or your friend or whoever died, he needs something to live in the afterlife. He'd better to drive a car, have a lot of money. A person went there to Kairon practically with nothing. The guys bring you a net like this. The size depends on your taste. They can even do it the size of half a block, or they can put up an ordinary urn. But in order not to save money, they burn fake things and banknotes, not real ones.
But in order to save money, they burn fake things and banknotes, not real ones. This is what the offering platform looks like in Singapore. Here we can see cockerels and dragons, of course, but also there is a tiny car for the deceased to burn it too, so that the person has it in the afterlife. There might be something else as well. The funniest thing is the fact that all these are made of paper, to save resources. All these are to be burned, and then the things move to the afterlife along with the deceased. You may burn bikes, cars, whatever. Look there, fashion purses from Gucci for $6. You can't do without them in the afterlife.
This is the souvenir worth bringing back from Singapore. It weighs nothing, costs little, and illustrates Asian culture.
It'll do only for bringing in the other world.
Right. Hey man, I brought you a bike as I promised. Let's burn it along with you.
Condos are expensive houses mainly for foreigners. The purchase price ranges from $500,000 to infinity. An important detail is for more than $500,000 an apartment is not sold, but leased for 99 years. This system of selling rented housing creates a unique atmosphere. On the one hand, there is no inheritance tax in Singapore, so you get something from your grandparents, and you don't have to give anything to the government. But on the other hand, the inheritance itself will soon vanish into thin air, because the lion's share of it is just an apartment, which is actually in rent. It turns out that no Singaporean can be sure that one will get an apartment from his grandparents and live there in peace. No, most likely he will have to buy a new house. At least once every 2 generations, the family must update the ownership of housing, buy it again. Way more expensive are private houses on their own land. Most often it is a shop house, a 2-story seemingly unassuming house, but they are owned forever. It's called freehold. Its cost starts from $1.5 million. It was only possible to buy them in the middle of the 20th century, and now, from the descendants of those who got their hands on them back then. There is multiple more expensive housing. Private houses on their own property. Most often, they are shop houses. Shop house is a 2-storied seemingly plain house, but they are in permanent property. This is called freehold here. The prices start from $1.5 million, and it was possible to buy them only in the middle of the 20th century. And now you can deal with the heirs of those who took advantage of the opportunity. This is an absolutely traditional Singaporean house. It always consists 3 parts. First, here is a passage under the roof. It's called 5-foot way. Secondly, there must be some kind of trading area below the pillars, most often just tiny restaurants. And the third element, above all this, is a residential area. As a result, we have something like a hut on legs, and between the legs there are restaurants, shops. The most amazing thing is that the houses were originally made with 2 floors. But even now, when we have 20, 40, 50-storied houses, they are built according to the same principle. That is, legs and restaurants and shops between them. And Pasha lives in a private house.
We live in an unpresentable bungalow. At about 11 acres of land or more, it costs something around $13 million.
For 13 million Singaporean dollars, that's about 9.5 million American dollars. You get an old 2-story building with a driveway in front.
This is what the house looks like from the outside. This is our hall.
The interior is very plain. Pasha hung up the flag of his motherland, Belarus, so that he could absolutely feel at home.
A chair, in fact, like all other furniture in this posh area, is obtained in a very easy way. Some evening, you go home and check what your neighbors threw away. This thing belonged to the owner of a Rolls Royce. He put it outside the gates. He doesn't need it, and it's really soft, comfortable.
This house cost $13 million just for one reason. It's not a lease. It's a real permanent possession. What about you? Are you willing to pay several $1 million for such a house? But most of Singaporeans, almost 80%, live in the so-called HDB. These are multi-storied human egg boxes. But even there, the cheapest flat costs $100,000. As you can see, the first floor of the HDB is always not just residential. It's open public space. So this part is similar to a small shop house, but in a multi-storied building. Mostly old people just sleep on benches on these first floors, or teenagers hang out. Some people keep their bikes. Often they're a famous hawker, and authentic Singapore food courts. The food here is so cheap that people hardly cook at home at all. In the evening, the whole house goes downstairs to a hawker to have dinner together.
The name derives from the word hawk, a bird like an eagle. In old days, there used to be food vendors who carried their food. They had that bar on their shoulders, and from the left and from the right, there were 2 or 3 food baskets hanging. In fact, now such vendors sell popcorn at stadiums. So those vendors were called hawker, from a hawk. Then it became the name of a food court. These are such places with many corners. Each corner is a separate restaurant, and an owner's been running it for several decades.
Look, a soup with pork ribs costs 4 Singapore dollars. It's about $3 US. Everything here costs $4 to $6. The most expensive dish is Peking duck. It costs $7. Oh, wait a minute. There is also a duck for $4. A small dish. A big one. $6.
А, нет, я ошибся. Вон уточка тоже есть по $4. Но это маленькая порция, а большая по 6. Вот такие общественные...
Singaporeans consider these public canteens to be their national treasure. They even try to put them in the list of World Cultural Heritage. It is a really unique phenomenon. Just imagine, a huge cafeteria on the first floor of every house. And the people do not cook at home. They just come downstairs and eat all together. That's great. Right? Despite the fact that HDB is cheaper than condominiums, the quality is often no worse. Gorgeous yards in front of the houses, fine parking lots, rooftops where you can have a barbecue. Here, nobody would ever try to close the roof and keep people from getting in there. Quite the opposite. The rooftop is the main public space. There is a park here. You can have a barbecue over there. Have nice weekends. By the way, it is not free. There is a small fee here. There are benches, chairs. It's a very comfortable area. Here is an electrical outlet so that you can plug something in. There is light. So it's a public space for the whole house. Actually, public spaces in Singaporean homes are very well arranged. Look over there. Right in the middle of the house, they made a similar small park. Just because not everyone is okay with having to climb to the roof. And now they can stay in the middle of the house, have a barbecue, just sit and relax, and so on. It's the government who set HDB prices. And they are at least half the price of commercial housing. But still, prices for one-room apartment in such a house start from $100,000. As for larger apartments in a good district, then they can cost $1 million or more. So in a way, every Singaporean is indeed the owner of a fortune of hundreds of thousands of dollars, if not a millionaire. But there is one detail. The thing is, the apartments are not given in the property. All the HDB apartments are leased, but leased for 99 years. Which seems like a long period of time. But the first HDBs appeared in 1961, that is, 61 years ago. So, the owners of such apartments still have 30 years ahead, which is not so much. For example, you won't manage to pass this property to your children. So, you yourself are a millionaire, but your children are already not. And in 30 years, your millions will turn into a dust.
If suddenly it occurred to you to invest in a real estate in Singapore and you bought a 99-year-old home, do your math. 99 minus 75, you get a home that is
24 years left.
Yes, I will do it for you, but not for your children. The government will throw them out in order to build a nice new condo for new foreigners.
In the 60s of the 20th century, the HDB was conceived as a social housing only for the poorest. Now, the system gives at least a little protection for locals from the wild rise in real estate prices, created by a huge demand from abroad. A foreigner cannot buy an apartment in the HDB. Such apartments are sold only to the official citizens of Singapore. This is a typical HDB district in Singapore, like the Project in the USA, or the Sim in the Great Britain, or Russian Khrushchevas. This is the housing for official citizens of Singapore only. Even not every Singapore citizen has a right to buy something. For example, a single person can't buy an HDB apartment till he or she is 35. This is how the government encourages marrying and having a family. There is even something like a tradition in Singapore. When there is a young couple under 35 and a guy says to his girlfriend, "Let's go see HDB apartments," he is actually proposing. The thing is, they can't buy an apartment before they get married or before they hit 35. So the phrase, "Darling, let's go see an apartment," means, "Darling, will you marry me?" It is exactly because of the real estate prices. Singaporeans are considered the richest nation in the world. where almost every second is a millionaire. In fact, all these millions are a property leased for 99 years. What is funny, during the day you can meet nobody at all in the courtyards of Singaporean high-rises. The fact is, children are at school, housekeepers are working inside. All residents without exception are working at their jobs. Singaporeans tend not to stay at home at all. There is a very short parental leave after childbirth. There are short vacations. And it's generally not customary not to work. It is not customary to stay at home. And even after retirement, many people keep working, because there is no pension as such. Here, there is an obligation for every resident of Singapore to put aside 30% of their salary to a special state account. But this money does not go to the state. You spend them yourself, but only for their intended purpose. For example, you can buy a house or pay for a clinic. Well, you can also spend the money on all sorts of unforeseen expenses. Therefore, if, for example, at the age of 50 to 60, a person gets seriously ill and needs the money for treatment, he can spend the money from this fund. But then he will have nothing to retire. And the government here does not sponsor you in any way if you have no money left in your account. You have nothing left. It's your problem. Let relatives, friends, whoever, take care of you, but not the state. Therefore, it is an absolutely normal thing for Singapore when an 80, even 90-year-old people work somewhere in a cafe, or in a parking lot, or do some other work that does not require physical strength. Mr. Liam, for example, spent his savings and the money for an apartment on medical treatment. Now he lives in a dorm for Singaporean olds. Here's what it looks like.
I stay here. My room is very pretty.
There are paintings and some other decorations on the walls from the previous apartment, which he had to sold. Is this your home? The room is yours?
Rented.
This is rented.
How much is your rent?
Rented one month about $500.
Yeah, you have a monthly payment.
Yeah, every month you got to pay.
Who is your landlord?
From the agent, from the company.
So this is a state-owned company? But it's not HDB.
Singapore has expensive stuff. Yeah, usually all people in the room is a rental later.
So in each of them lives someone.
6 rooms. Now the government, the rules do not allow you stay 7 person, 8 person. Singapore very. The rules are married 6 person, 1 person, 1 room.
But you are a citizen of Singapore, right?
Singaporean. Singaporean.
Why don't you live in HDB?
In big apartment. Now Singapore, good. You know money is quite expensive. Singapore expensive.
Yeah.
For your country different. Sometimes you buy one house, how much you can get? Few hundred. Singapore.
Yeah.
You want HDB 2 room, 300, 400.
Yes.
I understand.
And
Do you have children?
No. Not all children of the state.
So, only the single are allowed.
Single, yeah.
But the government helps, right?
Fucking the government is going to give you house. You want the money. You want it done. We stop advertising give house. No. Singapore, all waiting the house. Where you give. You no money, you can't get a house.
Can I ask you how much you earn? Do you earn every month's salary?
1,500, every month. How to buy the house?
But wait, they say all Singaporeans are rich.
Bullshit. Someone very. You talk Singapore people, other people slap. No, Singapore no. This is top. Then sometimes you pay high, you can get for the HDB house. You pay low, you can't buy HDB house. Rental also can't rental.
It is quite normal here if an old Singaporean has nowhere to live.
Some people give me lunch.
Mr. Whip lives on a bench. He is waiting to be settled in a municipal apartment. You sleep here for now?
Yeah, sleep here.
He can fit all his belongings near one post. A woman living in the neighborhood allowed me to shoot inside her apartment. Just look, if they sell this home, it would cost at least $250,000. So guys, this is a typical inexpensive apartment, which is rented out in the so-called HDB. There is just one bedroom. Here's the kitchen. There's the bathroom. This is a sink. This is what shower looks like. You pour water on yourself with a hose. The water is from here. There's no hot and cold water. There's just one water. Cold. I mean, it's warm. It is 91 degrees outside. There is no adjustment. Once again, it's a bathroom in an apartment that potentially could cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. Hundreds of thousands of dollars. However, this family doesn't pay that much, and this is another Singaporean feature. There are special programs here for low-income citizens only. For example, only for ex-criminals, or for families with children, like here. If you manage to get this benefit, then the price changes dramatically. How much do you think this family pays for this apartment?
Actually, $26.
$26?
Yeah, but different people. Let's say people buy the house, stay here, different price. So our electricity, then water bill is very high. Yeah, let's say two people nearer 200.
In order to get an apartment at this price, one must meet certain criteria. Probably Mr. Veep, for example, so far doesn't meet yet. There are practically no homeless people in Singapore, and every homeless is documented. According to a special Bureau of Statistics, there are now 921 homeless people. Funny fact, usually it's not foreign guest workers who become homeless here, but locals. On its website, the Bureau of Statistics describes a typical homeless person in Singapore as an elderly Chinese man who has medical problems, and he spent all his money on his treatment. This is how people end up on the street. Luckily, it is always warm here, and you can sleep anywhere.
Broke and no rooftop.
Yeah.
Actually went up to the 4th floor to actually find a place to actually sleep. I can actually show you where was it. In the middle of the night, came here, then take the lift up. I'm over here. Okay, I'll just find a spot here. Lay my cover sack and then sleep.
Henry also used to be a criminal. He got to jail, and when he was released, he turned out to be too young to claim to an HDB apartment. Do all the homeless in Singapore do this way?
Yes. Then some of them, they are more creative. They went to the beach in the East Coast or West Coast, they put a tent and then they sleep over there just like a home. It's raining heavily and then it's like shivering cold. You have nothing but you actually find newspaper to actually cover yourself.
It can be cold here in Singapore.
Yes. If it's rain very heavily, it tends to be very cold. So you just get all this cardboard actually as a bed and then you sleep and then using a newspaper as a blanket to sleep. So it still have the chill because the wind actually when it blows is actually right into your flesh and you just have to endure. Probably you can't sleep well, but yes.
It's interesting. And all this is happening in Singapore, the country of millionaires.
Well, a lot of things is being covered. People who wouldn't know. People just tend to like, it's not a very big issue to them because they have their own roof over their head. But a lot of those homeless actually have the same experience as what I have gone through.
Henry also joined the Singaporean secret group when he was young. He has 4 jail terms behind him. What did you do? How did you get your 4 jail terms?
Okay, the first time I do cheating, which is actually I use other people's application to apply for credit card. And once I got it, and we have to move down from here. Once I got their card, I just swipe and then buy things, buy gold to actually sell for cash.
After the 4th term, Henry decided to quit with the gangs, and that is how he lost his home. How does it happen? How does a citizen of Singapore, where presumably all people are millionaires, how can he be left without a roof over his head?
Well, there's a lot of reasons. It's either you don't earn much to actually, there's no help from your relative or even family members.
But what's amazing, guys, in Singapore, an ex-criminal, a former bum, may well rise up and become successful. Henry is now running a successful business. He has his own home. He recently got married. I know many countries where a person can fall to the very bottom, but there are not so many examples wherein he could rise up again. In Singapore, even beggars have a license. They are called buskers here. And this is what the license looks like. Here you see a photograph. The info, that he is a busker, and what kind of busking he does. This man, for example, plays the guitar and sings. And he can't change guitar for drums or whatever, because he has a license only for this activity. There are many various types of busking. And look, there is a special department responsible for issuing these licenses. Is this license free, or you need to pay for it? It's free. The government just gives it away.
You have to go for the audition.
Right. There's auditions. The government arranges.
There's a company that does the audition. Then you go for the audition, then they will see whether you are passable, then they'll give you the license. So it's like free, but you gotta have the standard to perform to get the license.
Is this for any kind of busking? If you want to set a hat and collect money, then you need a license.
Yes, you need a license.
So, a person must pass an interview to sing songs in the street. Because who knows? You might be a terrible singer.
Yes, it increases the authenticity. Be like everyone else. Cargo cult. At the same time, this saves Singapore from old women that just sit like robots. No one controls them. Taxpayers' money is outflowing. And in Singapore, everything is clear and strict, and under a license.
License for begging.
You can't just beg here, but you can sit in a wheelchair. We will probably meet one of these soon. And you can sell paper tissues. You give a pack of tissues worth a few cents, and they give you donations, as many as they can.
I pull a few deep on my dick, consider it's pivotal. Trap through the app, make a clap it, don't cap it, she tapping it fast. I think that you know they be catching it.
It was a former coolie house.
Coolie houses?
Yeah, coolie house.
Who are coolies?
Coolie is those laborers. Those laborers. They call coolies. Okay, so these are the place they stay. This is a coolie house. Okay, they stay here. So normally these coolie houses are run by Triads.
Coolie is the name of an Asian guest worker. Initially, the British called this the Indians, whom they took into service and used almost like slaves. But by the end of the 19th century, this word was more and more associated with Chinese refugees, ready to work on any conditions.
And then they will sell them away. Either they sell to bosses, they sell to hotels, or they sell to prostitution, or even some Chinese who are strong enough, they will be sold to US.
Chinese coolies, essentially slaves. used to build the first transcontinental railroad in the US from San Francisco to the east of USA. That is why the first Chinatown in the USA appeared in San Francisco. Later, same Chinatowns began to form in all major American cities, where semi-slave Asian labor was used. As for Singapore, it was a kind of hub for the Chinese slave trade. And many, if not most, of the current Chinese population of Singapore are the descendants of those semi-slave coolies. Ironically, now it is they who got themselves new half-slaves. This time, they are Malaysians, Filipinos, Indonesians, and guests from other Asian countries. In Singapore, there is such a profession, or even phenomena, maida.
Maida, she is also called helper. She is a housekeeper, and this is one of the lowest, I would say, infringed categories of the population. I believe lower are only the workers of the red light district who come here for 4 years. I get this from the internet. I may be wrong. After that, they are not allowed to enter the country at all, so that they don't marry and settle here. Maidas can enter for a longer period, but they have severe limitations. They have 1 day off per week. It's Sunday.
Maida shares the apartment with the people who hired her. Moreover, she often sleeps literally on the rug. This is the Maida of a family where I filmed. She has just a mattress in the living room, and it stands vertically during the day. On their only day off, they can't stay in the owner's home. They can't interfere.
Can you find boyfriend for me? I am single, I want boyfriend.
What kind of boyfriend do you want?
I want handsome, long. I want honest, good, and handsome.
And a Singaporean.
I want the same like you.
Like me? Okay, but just a hug. Every Sunday, Maidas gather in Singapore parks. This is their only day off. They spend time together, cook food, have fun. But what is the main dream of most of the girls who gather here? Their dream is to find a good man.
No boyfriend. This one is very important. You cannot have any boyfriend, pregnant or married.
This is a rare video, a class for future Maidas in Singapore. The island authorities do not expose this theme. Foreign workers are prohibited to have any private life. It's their owners who decide when and where they sleep, what they eat, and with whom they speak. Maidas can't change the owner on their own. Many people call it slavery of the 21st century. It's like the age of coolies in Singapore never ended. Jimma is from Bangladesh. She's been working as a Maida in Singapore for over 30 years.
Sometimes I never have a time to sleep. I'm working very hard, no time to sleep, because the children always I had to look after, then I had to cook, then children grown up, I had to bring them to school, like whole day running, like there is a no rest day. Sometimes I even don't have time to have my own lunch, breakfast or anything. Then I become a lose weight, I go down to 36 kg, 50 kg to 36.
Wow.
So it's a very hard life that I used to have, but I satisfy myself because of my child and my family.
I heard that back then, you didn't used to have a day off every week.
Yeah, one month only. Other days I don't have any off. And off also morning I go 11 o'clock, I finish bathing children and everything, feeding baby, everything. Then evening I must come back 5 o'clock home to have again continue my work.
You had only like 6 hours off.
Yes.
6 hours once a month? Or 8? Is that all you had?
26 years like that my life. But now only I have very freedom.
As a result, Jimma went to work for a family from Europe. According to the helpers themselves, the severest employers are the Singaporean Chinese.
But now my new employer, that Sunday is my office off. I don't have to do any work. Monday only I start my job. Sunday even I stay at home, they don't ask me to do anything. But local people are different.
Just imagine, 26 years of working around the clock, having no family, no privacy, no rights. All that for a chance to send a couple of $100s to her son she will never see again. Jimma's son is now as a guest worker in the Middle East.
Now he's in Dubai right now. He's working, he's already married, and I have one grandson.
But the lack of holidays is not the worst thing. In 2019, a young Singaporean family was convicted of bullying a maid. They beat her many times with sticks and fists, forced her to eat rice with sugar, and when she vomited, they made her eat it as well. In the text, there are examples of other, even harsher bullying lasting for 2 years. But now, the most interesting thing, the maid was compensated, $6,500. Later, journalists found out that this was less than a monthly income of the convicted couple. This case, far from being the first one, caused a boom of resentment, and foreign maids were allowed to change the owner in case of bullying.
In 3 years, I have 4 employers.
Wow. Why?
The 2 employers, they are not nice.
What did they do?
They are shouting, screaming at me. Not enough food.
Most maids are afraid to talk about their lives because they can be thrown out of the country. I heard sometimes your owners don't treat you very well.
In this area. Does it happen still?
Yeah. Wait a minute. Are you going to broadcasting? Where? Are you going to spread this?
Not here. It will be in the Russian language. Can you talk about your employer's actions? Are you afraid to talk about it on camera?
No. It's our secret. It's a general secret.
It's not a secret at all. Everyone is talking about it online.
Yeah.
So, why don't you tell?
Just say it.
No, it's just
If you want, I can hide your faces.
No, I mean it's because some are lucky, and probably some of us not. It just depends, you know. It depends which family you work for. That's all.
But it does happen that they beat you.
Oh, some certain, yeah, few, but few, just few.
Yes, from the point of view of a rich person, this is slavery. From the point of view of a person who got out of a dugout, a hut, an adobe house in her homeland, where she left a family that can survive for $100 for a whole month, for her to go to Singapore and earn $1,000 a month, given that you're provided with a shelter, food, often uniforms, clothes, everything, it's just heaven.
We are talking about 1,000 Singapore dollars, which is approximately $700 US, and not everyone earns that much.
I start my salary 600. Until now, I start 600 until 800 now.
Male guest workers in Singapore work mostly on construction sites and also live separately from women, mostly in overcrowded dorms in the Little India area. This is also Singapore, guys. Once a week, the inhabitants of Little India don't go home. This is the only day when they don't get a fine for lying and sleeping right in the street. The thing is, their house is, in fact, not a home. Most often, these are dorms, overcrowded, packed to the limit. Therefore, it's happiness for them to sleep on the street, like this, on a dirty lawn, littered already with some kind of bottles. Singapore is an incredibly green city. Just wherever you look, everywhere there are bushes, trees, grass, lawns. There's even a Make Singapore Green program here for planting literally every microscopic piece of land with a some tree or grass. Look, guys, they are trying to make the city green so eagerly that they even put a large pot on top of the road fence and planted something. Fencing of the construction site. Look, they hung these pots with greens right on the fence. They tried to plant any tiny piece of land and even tarmac with grass and trees and flowers. a robot lawnmower in Singapore, so that the lawn is always nice and perfect. And this is an authentic Singaporean thing here. We are on the roof of the parking lot. It's the parking lot of this business center. But the Singaporeans decided, why should we waste such a nice space as the roof of a parking? So, what do we have here? Here is a green recreation area. There are such deck chairs here. You can take off your backpack to make yourself comfortable like this and sunbathe. Moreover, this is not some special unique parking lot, one of a kind. No, this is an absolutely normal arrangement on parking roofs in Singapore. The only thing I'm lacking is a cocktail. Here's a Singapore's bike parking. Looks like a chic bungalow. Everything is green. Well, you don't want your bike to stay in an ugly place. It must be in a beautiful place. Look, everything inside is nice and beautiful. No bikes falling on the ground. Do you know why I'm speaking quietly? It's because people often rest and sleep there. Mainly delivery guys. I don't know. Now, look, there's some guy sleeping over there. I don't want to disturb him. Wake him up. Food couriers often use such parking lots as their resting places. Damn, there's some perfect, just idyllic square in front of the metro. The birds are singing. Everything is green around here. People are enjoying their snacks they brought from home. People from all over the world. There are Indians, Chinese of course, various Europeans, Indonesians. Such a blend, you know. There are a lot of various restaurants. And all this in the shade of some palm trees and large sprawling trees. Houses here are also covered with plants. Well, this is some kind of utopia. Just a picture from a movie. But it is really just an ordinary metro station and a square in front of it. And this is not even some super central station. Just an ordinary square in front of a metro station. Singapore is one big and several dozens of small islands, with an area 2 times smaller than London and 3 times smaller than Moscow, with a population of almost 6 million people. Singapore's only natural resource is its geographic location, at the mouth of the Strait of Malacca, where there is a main sea route between the Indian and Pacific Oceans. The economics of this island is growing at a phenomenal rate. Since 1991, the world economics has grown 2.3 times, the Russian economy 3.4 times, and the American one 3.7 times. Singapore economics has grown almost 9 times, which however is slower than Chinese economics, which has grown 46 times over the same time. Back in the 60s of the last century, Singapore was generally a poor island. Almost the entire diet of Singapore was rice. Many people had to live in thatched shacks. Singapore was controlled by the Triads, who divided the island into their zones of influence. The transformation of the island into a prosperous state is associated with one name: Kuan Yew. In 1959, a lawyer and a Cambridge becomes the Prime Minister of Singapore. By 1965, with the support of Great Britain, Singapore withdrew from Malaysia. The reason was the racial and religious differences between the Muslim Malay population and the Buddhist Chinese one. They believed that Lee Kuan Yew got rid of the all-powerful Triads and made the Singapore economics free and open, which in turn attracted a huge flow of foreign investment. In reality, this is not quite true. Under Lee Kuan Yew, just a few families began to rule Singapore. And these are the same families that control the city since the age of the Triads. All the main businesses are shared between them. And first of all, banking and construction. Thus, according to local press, the secret groups became invisible ones. Power in Singapore is divided between the same families. Nowadays, for example, the head of Singapore is Lee Kuan Yew's son. Lee Sen rules. Long, who leads Singapore's eternally ruling party, the PAP. But the most ridiculous thing is that one of the leaders of the main opposition party, the PSP, is another Lee Kuan Yew's son. Lee and Yang, the brothers, are allegedly at odds. Here is a rare photo of them together. Nepotism in the main fields of business and politics did not prevent Singapore from creating freedom in the areas of the new economics. By the 90s of the 20th century, Singapore became the first country in the world that moved from the developing class to developed one. A few years later, South Korea managed to do the same, and no one else in the world so far. In February 1990, Soviet Prime Minister Nikolai Ryzhkov came to Singapore on a visit. Back then, the Soviet Union was having a hard time. Empty stores and a huge external debt for which they had nothing to pay. Nikolai Ryzhkov goes to the local supermarket fair price, and he is just shocked by the choice of food. Then Nikolai Ryzhkov asks the local prime minister, Kuan Yew, for a loan of $50 million to buy food here and bring it to the Soviet Union. Of course, $50 million back then was more than now. But still, it was an insignificant amount for both USSR and even for Singapore, that already was a rich country in the 90s. However, Lee Kuan Yew refused. He later explained this act in his memoirs. If the Prime Minister of the USSR applies to tiny Singapore for a loan of $50 million, it means all the loans from large states have already been exhausted, and the debt obligations of the USSR are worth nothing. Well, he turned out to be right. And less than in 2 years, the Soviet Union collapsed. In some places, Singapore looks absolutely like New York. Look at this gap between skyscrapers. It's a real New York, and even some kind of New York vibe. And maybe especially for this, so that it absolutely looks like New York. The Singaporean guys even broke the asphalt. Well, because there can't be good asphalt in New York, only broken with holes. And this certainly creates an authentic feeling of the American Big Apple. At the same time, there are practically no traffic jams in Singapore. It has one of the best public transport systems in the world. You need a mask in public transport, so I'm wearing one right now. Absolutely typical picture for Singapore. One bus is waiting at the bus stop, and a queue of other buses has already lined up behind it. They drive here in single line, constantly arriving at bus stops. As a result, you almost never have to wait for a bus. It is convenient and fast to move around the city by bus. You don't even have to go down the subway, although it is too top grade in Singapore. To have your own car in Singapore is incredibly expensive. Here is one simple example. This is a Peugeot, not some kind of pretentious car, a workhorse. It costs $30,000 at the dealership, but after that, you have to pay a registration fee for it. Depending on the original cost of the car, it can range from 100 to 180%. For this exact car, it is $35,000, so it costs already $65,000. But that's not all. Then you have to pay excise duty. It is 20%, so another $13,000. So $78,000 in total for this car. But even this is not all. Then you have to pay sales tax. It is 7% in Singapore, so another $5,000. So about $83,000 in total for this car. But that's not all. To drive it, you need to buy a so-called management certificate. It is sold at a market price, which is constantly changing depending on demand. Now that I'm making this video, it's about $55,000, and it fluctuates around that number all the time, plus or minus $5,000 to $6,000. So you get the price level. So another $55,000 to $83,000. That would be $138,000 for a Peugeot. This car here costs as much as some fancy Mercedes in another country. Oh my god, you may say, how can a simple car worth like a fancy Mercedes? Wait a minute guys, I haven't finished. The certificate you buy for the car for $55,000 is not permanent. You get it for 10 years. And then it'll just disappear. And every 10 years you have to buy a new certificate for this car for about $55,000. That's how much it costs to have a car here. So, as you see, a person who drives a car here paid at least $100,000 for it. In fact, few people here drive their own car. Mostly, these are the owners of various Mercedes, Ferraris, Porsches, you name it. They are rich people. If you see in the Singapore streets a Mazda 3 or a Toyota Corolla, then most likely this is a company car. When an employee drives the car of the company, he did not pay for it. It's just too expensive and unreasonable. In fact, a personal car, even some kind of Mazda 3, is considered to be a cool bonus to your job in a company. I mean, I have a salary of $10,000, and they even gave me the Mazda 3. Oh shoot, you're cool, and my company doesn't give us a Mazda. We can't even afford a moped. Yes, and by the way, I didn't tell you, it's just a trifle. A driving license in Singapore costs $2,000. Well, it's nothing. You can buy them for the change. All in all, Singapore is a city you don't want to leave, hustling and bustling megapolis, where, at the same time, there are many peaceful parks and squares. Ultra-modern skyscrapers here coexist with ancient temples and rapid technological development with the preservation of traditions. And we have not yet tasted the legendary Singaporean street food. It will be in another episode. What do you think a Michelin restaurant should look like? In Singapore, it looks like this. How can a Michelin-starred food in the most expensive city in the world cost $6? What is Singapore borscht? This dish causes real regional wars here. And as always, we are going to taste the most unusual Singaporean dishes. They cook such delicious food here. The smell is just amazing. So prepare your stomachs and your nerves. Subscribe so you don't miss anything. Well, your likes are always welcome as well. And we are rolling to the next destination.